Hi, my name is Reverend Carole Kiamah, and this is Thoughts of a Shaken Pastor Season 5. In this season, we're talking to men and women who have positively influenced the growth of the faith in this country. And today's guest is a person that is well known to me. He's a friend, he's a brother, he's a pastor, he's a journalist, he's many things. Welcome, Pastor James Okumu. Nice to have you here.
Finally, I get to sit with you.
Yes, and finally I'm on this side, right?
Yes, it feels strange.
It does.
Yeah.
Now we are calling this season Wahenga Wateule, not because you're old or anything, but really because I feel that there are people who've been chosen and they have done a lot.
Okay.
And their wisdom can speak to generations. And I know that you've done many, many things. You've been the first time I met you, you were a stylist. Let's call it stylist. You were a stylist or an image consultant. And then you've been a pastor. You've been in the media. You've done a lot. But let's go back to the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about your family.
My family. I come from a huge family. 9 kids. I'm right there in the middle, number 6.
Allah? Okay.
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in Buru. I was born in California, but by the time I was California ile ingine ni ya jua kali na nonini.
Jua kali na nonini.
But when I was 4, we moved to Buru. So I would pretty much say all my life I've grown up in Buru. Yeah.
So how did you come to faith?
Wow, my journey to faith was a very interesting one because number one, my parents were not necessarily faith people. Yeah, my parents going to church, I never saw them go to church, never. First time I saw my mom in church is when I got married.
Yeah. Not even baptism?
No. Baptism yoni yenyu. Yeah. In fact, baptism, I got a baptism card, but I was not baptized. Yeah, my dad talked to the church elders na huko Shago. We went for a service. We were called to the front of the church, and then they prayed for us, and then we left with baptism cards.
Silia Bendera.
Silia Bendera. Silia Bendera. So I think my first interaction with faith is I remember when I was in lower primary, would come from school, and there are days my friends would not be there. And I would wonder, and I got to discover they used to go, you know Katho. We used to call it Katho. Yeah. They used to go to Katho for classes. The classes were called Dini back in the day. I mean the classes are Dini.
Definitely confirmation.
Exactly. So that was my first interaction with faith, hands-on, because I started going for those classes. Because I'm left alone. There's no one to play with. So let me go with them.
Buru,
this is in Buru, yeah. So we'd go to Phase 5 Catholic Center.
That place
Yes. And I remember, I think I went for 3 classes. And the third one, I was told to recite. They were reciting Maria Mtakatifu, Mama wa Mungu, that thing. And so I didn't know it. But 2 or 3 people recited before me, and then I was called, and then I said the part that I know. And I remember the teacher pinched me. And I said, sikuji kanisa tena. Hii kanisa wanachuna watu. Sikuji tena.
Hatutachapwa home, shule na church.
Tena church tuchunwe. Ai, hapana, no. So I stopped going. Then my next interaction with the faith was when I was in, I think, class 7, 8 there. Class 7, I transferred to another school. And so I went back to class 6. Masomo ilikuwa imekataa kidogo. Bwana asifiwe.
Lakini Mungu ni mwema.
Mungu ni mwema. Hallelujah. And so the school I transferred to, the person I connected with sang in the choir. Class 6.
Sitacheka. Nilienda
He was part of the
church.
choir.
At 12.
And so I was very intrigued.
Class 6 is like 12, 13. That's
yes. I was very intrigued. This young, you sing in the choir, and it's not a youth choir, it's the main choir. And you go for competitions. You used to go to St. John's, SK, St. John's hapo Pumwani Majengo there. Yeah, my good friend Peter Kirumba. So he was my best friend, first of all, because both of us were what you would call blessed physically. So because people used to make fun of our size, we consoled one another. So we became best friends. And so now, because he used to go to church, I discovered, there's an SCK church in Buru, St. James. So that's how I started going to St. James. Yeah, I became part of the youth group, tulikuwa tunaitwa Kayo, Kenya Anglican Youth Organization. I could not sing because lazima ujue mahali uko kwa Biblia, whether you are Psalms 100 or whether you are Psalms 90, is it 93 or 98? Sing a new song, ama make a joyful noise. Meaning you make a joyful noise. So
ukachana na watu wa sing a new song.
Watu a new song hao ndio wa choir. So I joined drama. And so we would go for those competitions. So at that point, I remember at one point, I think I gave my life to Christ. But it wasn't a serious thing. Yeah, it was nearly, since this is the crowd we roll with and people say they are born again, then it's
like that recitation of Maria Mtakatifu.
Yes. Yeah, we just flow together, we just roll, we are part of the church. Sunday afternoon we go for youth meetings and all. So that's how it was until now. I went to high school, Form 2. Form 2, this is the time Bonke came to Kenya. Yeah, Bonke came to Kenya and we had this huge crusade at Uhuru Park. And I'll never forget my friend, this friend of mine, we ended up in the same high school, by the way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So him and another guy from Buru Phase 5 told me, you need to go for this crusade, you need to go. So I went. I think it was the last day. I had the message of the gospel properly presented. And I got born again in tears. Yeah. So that's how I actually got born again at Uhuru Park.
So you get saved in Form 2, karudi shule, C2, CU.
Nikarudi shule, CU, Bwana asifiwe.
Amen.
CU at lunchtime, sometimes we have meetings. The things I would look forward to when other schools would come, maybe there's a challenge weekend. We used to do a lot of stuff with the Ngara girls because I was in Jammu and it's the same neighborhood. So sometimes we'd combine our meetings. This is the time when, I don't know if you remember Elvis Ochieng.
Of course.
Yes,
Elvis and
Elo na Roba.
Na kulikuwa mnule mrefu.
Noel. Yes. Yes, those were the people, man. I mean, they would come to Jammu and the CU room would be packed. Even with people who were not Christians. Because they just had a way with words. They knew how to deliver. Teresia, not my time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My time was mostly those three. Elvis, Noel, and Roba. And there was another preacher with a Luya name. What was his name? I've forgotten his name. There was a kind of rivalry between these two groups. And I remember one time both of them were invited for a meeting at State House and we went for that meeting.
State House Girls?
Yes, State House Girls. It was a very interesting meeting. But then, by the time I was getting to Form 3, because I didn't have proper grounding.
I'm kind of stuck. Sorry.
I'm trying to remember who that...
Is it this guy?
Akatsa.
Paul.
He was called Akatsa.
Paul Akatsa.
Yes. Yes, he was called Akatsa. Yeah.
But Deliverance.
Oh, I'll call it Deliverance. Okay. Yeah, those guys kept us going.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kept us going. And by the time I was getting to Form 3, no grounding. I'm not part of a local church. I keep visiting this church, that church. So because I'm not being discipled, I gravitated back to what I was familiar with, you know, and being in Jammu, there's like a reputation we had in the school. You know, I was part of the basketball team, which was the rowdiest group in the school. I was part of what we'd call, we had the, you know, the supporting, we used to call it the junk band. Yeah, so when rugby is there, we are the ones singing those songs that cannot be uttered in this kind of atmosphere. Praise the Lord.
Praise God.
Yeah. So that just deviated my walk completely. I even stopped going for CU. I got to a place I thought I'm pretending. So I stopped CU things altogether and just lived life. Yeah, lived life from 3, from 4, finished school. Wanted to be a lawyer, by the way. Yeah, you would be seeing me on TV, not preaching, but nikisema your honor.
It's okay. Hata sasa tunakuonanga kwa TV.
Max zilikataa. Max is likata because I was a joker in high school, to be honest. Sometimes when my mom hears my stories, he wonders, are we talking about the same child? Because she has this perfect picture of me. So when I tell her some of the things I have done behind closed doors, she thinks, oh my goodness. So finished Form 4, went to work for a cigarette company in Thika. Worked there
Sportsman.
for BAT.
Oh.
Worked there for about 6 months. Then,
Oh, and you're in the party scene, so that is not a very nice job. But anyway,
But I keep telling people this. One of the things I thank God for is that all those things my body refused. Unasikiaga mwili imekataa. Watu husema damu yangu ilikataa. Drinking, smoking, even the party life, it refused completely.
it wasn't your thing.
It just was not my thing. And when I look back, I think it's because of what God was preparing me for. I thought I had run away, but he was not done with me yet. Yeah. So after that, got called to Kenya Poly to do graphic design. And in the course of that, there's a lady who would come to our house to look for my sister, my elder sister. My elder sister used to go to Lighty. By then, I was on and off. When I feel like I don't want maneno mingi, I'd go to Sitam Valley Road and sit balcony huko juu mwisho kabisa. I'd go for the first early service, walk in, listen, get out, go home.
So there was a part of you that was hungry.
Yes. There was
but
a part
you just
of me
hadn't
that,
found the fit.
I still felt like I need purpose in life. I need somewhere where I feel I belong. I need somewhere where I can have an impact. You know, one of the things I keep telling people is that growing up as a middle child, I felt like I didn't have a voice.
And you're 9.
Yeah, we are 9
but
and I'm the 6th.
But the time when mtu number 6, what do you think?
Yeah, hata washachoka. Yeah, even when things are bought, zangu ni hand-me-downs. You know, you have to wait to inherit, sasa imenifikia. So I felt like, I was very timid, by the way, growing up. Oh yeah, very timid.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, standing before people and speaking. People see me on TV now and they think we were born with it. Hey, pengine ilikuwa huko kwa miguu. It took time for it to come out. I still chew my fingers till today. You know, so yeah, so this lady would come to look for my sister, and for some reason she would always find me and not my sister. So one day she said, by the way, so you could fellowship. And I had excuses and excuses for several weeks. One day we are out, you know the way Buru is, you have coats, we are out there just chatting with some friends. And she shows up and she says, Jemo leo lazima ukuje fellowship. Unaona hiyo gate umesimama, fellowship iko kwa hiyo hao. Leo tuingie tu. Hata kama utakaa mpaka mwisho, even if it's just for a few minutes, just come. So I entered the fellowship. Nice fellowship, there was tea and cake, Bwana asifiwe. Yeah, if there's tea and cake, I'll hang around until the cake is finished. Then.
Is this the fellowship where Kina Frida used to come?
Yes, that's the one.
I think that's where I first met you.
That's the one.
Hey, Jemo, we come, Jemo. I'm wondering, who is this Jemo? Anyway,
yeah.
The only time I ever visited that fellowship. Can you imagine that?
What?
Ni vile umesema keki na chai.
Yeah.
Well, thank God this stomach would be destroyed. Anyway,
So I went to that fellowship and I met a group of Christians who, for me, I thought were the most real Christians I've ever met. Because the format of the small group was very simple. We would go in, have tea, people would ask each other, how was your week? People would just chat about what's happening, how your week was, what. And then we would have some time and just sing a song or two and just pray. People would present their needs. Then the leader would read a scripture based on the sermon that was preached in church on Sunday, and they would make it practical. You know, is there, if the sermon was about forgiveness, is there anybody in your life you struggle to forgive? Why? And people were so open. I thought, oh my goodness, these believers have issues. Me, I'm not born again, but I think I can help you with that one. I think there's a way we can figure it out. So I felt so comfortable. And the other reason I felt comfortable in their midst is they never pushed me to get born again. All they pushed me to do was come for fellowship. And I loved the fellowship. They were so loving. They were not judgmental.
They were honest.
Yeah, they were honest. They were not spiri. You know, there's another way, there's another kaspiri sometimes people bring, and it's like, it's to camouflage something. You're overdoing this thing.
Read fake.
Yes. Them, they were just real, everyday people. And I remember one time we had fellowship and we finished, and there was a guy called James, just like me. And we were having tea, and he turned and he said, by the way, Jemo, mbona hujaokoka? Ushaifikiria siku moja utaokoka? And in my mind, I'm thinking, he's asking me, this salvation thing, will you come around one day? And I said, yeah. And he announced to the whole group, haya, Jemo anataka kuokoka.
Like, oh
Me, I'm
God.
thinking, I was not saying now, I was saying in the future, it's something I will consider. But at that very moment in my heart, I felt like God was asking me, why not now? You're already part of this group anyway. Why not now? And so, knelt down, rededicated my life to Christ.
Amen.
And it was just an amazing feeling for me, because now I had a community of friends, people I identified with, people who really cared for me, people who were genuinely concerned, not about me getting saved, but about me being their friend. Yeah. And after that, the leader of the group asked me, by the way, ulisema wewe uenda Valley Road, I would like you to come and visit our church just once. At least to want to see uenda church wapi. And then pray for God to lead you where to go. If God leads you to join us, fine. If God leads you to stay where you stay, I would encourage you that now that you're born again, find out what they do there. If they have small groups there, join one. Yeah, whatever it is they do there, get plugged in. That's how you'll grow. So that Sunday I went to Lighty for the very first time, City Stadium. And I found a group of crazy people who loved Jesus and were not ashamed about it. And I stayed. Yeah, and I stayed and I continued going for the small group. And that's how I became grounded in the Word. In the Word.
And Lighthouse did have a very, very, very good discipleship module.
Oh, yeah.
Model as well.
Yeah.
So you went to Lighthouse by default. Then?
So I continued going to the small group. I joined the sound team. Yeah, I was part of the sound team. And it was very demanding because church was at City Stadium, but the church office was in Westlands. So we would have to wake up early, go to Westlands, load the sound in a truck, bring it to the stadium, set it up, and then after service, demolish everything, load it, take it back to the office. So I thought, I can't just sit. Let me serve somewhere. So I joined the sound team. In the process of that, you know, when there's something over your life that God has put, you can't hide it. Whether you know it or not, it's there. Soon enough, they said, you know what, you need to be the intern of this small group. Yeah, you have to be the intern. Let this leader walk with you and train you. One of these days, you'll take over this group. And so I thought, well, okay, let's see how that goes.
And this time you're still a student at the poly?
This time I had finished poly. Because when I rededicated my life to Christ, I was just about to finish poly. Yeah. And I remember, you know Maureen, my wife?
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember when I went to tell her that I'd rededicated my life to Christ. Because we were in the same boat. Even her, she had gotten born again earlier. And then,
Yes. But you were dating?
Then she met me, praise the Lord.
Oh, akasema Jesus.
Yeah, but we were dating.
Zote ni J.
Yes, we were dating. So I went and told her that I've rededicated my life to Christ. And I'll never forget what she told me. She told me, I will not do so because you have done so. Because I know the next thing that is coming, you cannot be equally unyoked with an unbeliever. And I said, let's just wait and see what God does. Yeah, and back then we used to make cards, handmade greeting cards. We would take them to Keswick. Yeah, and I remember one day, this is now several months later, she was delivering an order there. And there was a very nice gentleman there. I just learned the other day, by the way, he passed on. He was called Njogu. He asked her, by the way, you guys make such nice things, but do you know the Lord? Are you born again? So my wife rededicated her life at Keswick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because that man led her back to the Lord.
God bless him.
Yeah.
So how did you meet? First, take us back to meeting Maureen.
I met Maureen in college. Interesting thing is remember I told you I transferred and repeated?
Yes.
We were actually in the same primary school. Yeah. But when she was finishing is when I was repeating. So hatukukutana. but the younger brother was a few classes behind me. So I actually met her in college. We were at Kenya Poly. Both of us did graphic design. And I remember walking into class day one, and I looked around and I thought, this one I have to know. I was attracted by her innocence. She looked so innocent. I thought, I need somebody innocent in my life. Mimi niko na ujuaji mingi. I need somebody who is innocent. So from day one, I made a beeline for her. By the second week, we were desk mates. And then the relationship just developed from there.
Organize second week na mshakuwa desk mate.
Mimi nilikuwa nishajipanga. Hapa stoki tu na diploma. Kuna certificate nyingine naweza toka nayo hapa. That one will be valid until death do us part.
She was just in class learning.
Yes. The Lord had directed her. The Lord had good plans for her.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So that's how we met. Yeah, that's how we
met. So now you're dating, you're both in the world, and then you become a Christian in this very strict environment. I think people need to understand, lighters at that time, even just dating an unbeliever, even dating and you're in leadership, you must go and declare.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the most you can do is hold hands. What's a year squeezing? We hug everything, even trees. Back in the day,
hugging was such a crime.
If you're seen hugging a girl, you have a case to answer. I'm telling you.
I had friends in Lighthouse when I was dating in campus, and I remember I was always being summoned.
Oh.
Anyway, moving on. So yeah, hugging was.
Yeah, hugging was a no-no. Don't even go there.
Hugging was like premarital sex.
Yeah.
So. And then you're dating a non-believer. So how did that pass under the radar?
It passed under the radar because, you see, I'm still new. And then for her, it didn't take long for her to come around. Yeah, about 2 or 3 months later, she rededicated her life to Christ.
Oh, wow, that's
so I thought, hey, Jehovah Man's idea. I was thinking of starting again. Yeah,
and your heart is here.
Yeah, so for me, that was a good report.
All right.
So eventually this small group ended up growing. It was a huge group. And it had to now multiply. So from that one group, 3 groups were born. And I became a leader of one of the 3 groups. Yeah. So now I had my own small group that I would lead. I would host them at home. Sometimes the other people would volunteer their places to host. And it was, for me, I think small groups helped stabilize me in the faith, and they helped me to grow. And even today, I keep telling the congregation that I pastor, be part of a small group, because I know what it did for me. Yeah, I mean, people keep you accountable. People come to your house for fellowship. Kuna ka DVD ulikuwa umeacha mahali vibaya, mtu anakaona, anakukalisha chini, anakuuliza hizi nini unaona, wewe ni mtu wa Mungu. You know, so that accountability, praying together, doing things in the community together, because we had a lot of outreaches we would do. Buru Flats, Buru Police Station, Uhunye. You know, we would come together as a group and say, you know what, this Saturday afternoon we'll feed the street kids. We would go and do it. This Saturday afternoon, let's go visit the police and just make lunch for them. Yeah, this Saturday we go house to house. There's one time we went evangelism door to door, flats, Buru Flats. Tulimwagiwa maji moto. Watu walifikia sisi ni JWs. Sijui walifanya na nini na JWs. Walitumwagia maji moto. And the interesting thing I tell people is it didn't discourage us. We went away laughing, thinking, leo tumemwagiwa maji moto. Hey, next house please, twende. So there was that the community was very vital for growth. And because the people we were in community with were genuine people. So that if you miss church one Sunday, they will come to your house next week. Boss, ulikuwa wapi mbona ukam church? This is what you missed. So that accountability kept us going. So that happened. I think my group multiplied either once or twice. And then I was told, now you need to climb up a rank higher. Because we've seen you're faithful, you're raising up people, you've raised up leaders. Now we want you to be what we call a section leader. So a section leader was a leader in charge of overseeing 5 small groups. So you have a small group led by a cell leader. Then you have 5 small groups led by a section leader. So my section was Buru. I oversaw about 5-6 groups in Buru. So I did that for some time, and then it was time for me to move out of home, because I got to the place I said, Lord, if I'm going to get married, I want to live alone first for 1 year and see if I can sustain myself, because I didn't have a regular job. We just used to do our graphic design stuff, measuring on hand made cards. So we would depend a lot on seasons. December and Valentine's, Easter and Christmas were the big seasons. And then in between it's birthday cards and kama kuna ka occasion here and there. So in fact, December was big because of Christmas and success cards. We would do a lot of that. And then the different bookmarks we would make and take to people in bookshops. And all the lunchtime meetings. We used to go for all the lunchtime meetings in town. I knew all the lunchtime meetings because we would take our staff to the people who have tables outside there to sell our bookmarks and our cards and all that. So I thought, can this work sustain me? Because I'm still living under my father's roof. I don't have to think about rent, electricity, and all those things. So I told God I want to stay alone for 1 year.
Oh, that was really smart.
Yeah, 1 year. So I moved out. So when I moved out, I decided where I'm going, naenda kisniper. Yeah, I'm not going to lead anybody. I'm not even going to tell them where I'm coming from. They may have seen me in church, but they don't know the details of whether I'm a leader here or there. So I just went, joined a small group. But God had his own plans. Yeah, because by the second week, they said, no. You're not just a member, we know you. You have to have some leadership position in this group. So the section leader told me, you will help me with the section. So I found myself back where I was. So did that stayed alone for 1 year, did that, then got married. After getting married now, life has changed. Things were pretty rough. That's a story that's a whole other show. But at one point, my neighbor comes into the house and says, have you guys heard the new Christian station? And I'm thinking, there's a Christian station in Kenya. She says, yeah, flip the channel, 105.2. So we flipped 105.2 and we hear gospel music and we hear Family FM. So we listen to it for a couple of minutes and then she tells me, by the way, you have an interview there tomorrow.
Your neighbor?
Yes. And I'm thinking, woman, are you mad? I'm a graphic designer. This is what I do. I have no training for media. She says, you have a good radio voice and you don't even know it. Just go. So I go to
She'd
Family.
organize this for you?
Yeah, she had called and told them she knows somebody who can be a good radio presenter and she wants an interview for this person. And they agreed.
Such a nice person.
Imagine, they agreed. So I went there the next day at about 10. Yeah, went back home.
With a job?
In the evening after my first day of work. Then I went in.
Interviewed you?
They interviewed me and I started working.
When was this?
This is in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Before you were born.
You're wow.
Yeah. So now I'm doing that, at least the stability in the home because finances were an issue at that time. Continuing with ministry. And things are looking good. Yeah. Continuing with the cards, continuing with the ministry, things are looking good. At least life has meaning now.
Yeah.
You know, life has meaning. And then I'll never forget one time my pastor called me and he said, we need to see you, you and your wife. And I went home and I told my wife, guess what? The call has come. We knew we would end up as pastors. How? We don't know. But we somehow knew one day, mwito itakuja. But now the mwito is coming at a time where you've entered into this new space. It's the only Christian station in the country. People know you from here till Timbuktu. I mean, people knew me everywhere. And I'm thinking, I give up this for Ayapana. No. We had a conversation with my wife that night and we said no. It's not the right time.
Ministry.
Ata ingine in ministry. Say no, and we agreed. The pastors came home the next day, and for sure, that was it. The call of God, we feel the call of God is over your life. You may not recognize it, but you're already doing pastoral work because you're overseeing 50 people. You follow them up every week. you're raising up leaders. You know, I mean, 50 people is a church. So have you ever thought of coming into full-time ministry? Yeah, this is something I've thought of. I've always known my life will end up in this direction. They said, okay, we want to give you time to pray about it. I thought they would give me like a month. You know, this is something deep. Give me time to. Hey, they told me they're giving me, I think it was 48 hours. So we looked at each other with my wife and we thought, okay, 48 hours later, pastor calls, come to the office, let's talk. I go to the office. So have you decided? Yes. We sat down with my wife, we talked about it, we have decided. So what have you decided? We have decided. In my mind, I was saying no, but my mouth said yes.
What
am I getting myself into? So pastor is celebrating. Oh yes, what? So I go home. I enter the house like this. My wife says, I know you said yes. I know you said yes. And I said, how did you know? I just know. God told me you would say yes. And for sure. So that's how I ended up becoming a pastor at Lighthouse.
And you were just standing outside a gate.
Imagine talking to my friend.
See God. I love the way God
who knew?
Interruptions.
Yeah, who knew? So now the people who were encouraging me to come to the group, now I'm one of their pastors. Unbelievable. Yeah.
That's how God works.
Yeah.
Oh wow. And you served in Lighthouse for how many? What capacity were you serving at?
In Lighthouse, when I went in, I was one of the associate pastors. I had a group of adults that I was overseeing. Because now we had the cell group with a cell leader, then we had a section leader overseeing 5 cell groups. Then now we had a zone pastor overseeing 5 section leaders. We call it the Jethro model. 1/50s, 100s,
thousands. Yeah.
So as a zone pastor,
it
works. As a zone pastor, I was overseeing 5 section leaders. So when I went in, I was what you would call an adult pastor. But then, before I went in, we had the first Extreme Weekend. You remember Extreme Weekend? Yeah. We had the first Extreme Weekend, and I remember at that time, both me and Tinanzuki were working at Family. So, you know my bishop, Bishop Chola. Then he was the youth pastor. He said, can you come and MC this thing for us? You guys are in the media, you guys can pull a crowd. So we went and MC'd. So after the event, and then I became a pastor, the senior pastor thought, no, this guy, we've put him in the wrong place. This guy is a youth pastor. The way he connects with the young people, we are putting him in charge of people who are older than him, it will not work. So they changed me now to be. The energy is different. The energy is different.
So now, with Chola.
So now I started working with Chola. So now Chola was the youth pastor, I was a zone pastor under him. Yeah. So that's what I did in Lighthouse for 8 years, from 2000 until 2008, actually 9 years.
So you find yourself as a pastor, and now the thing that you were doing during your free time to grow yourself has become your full-time occupation.
Yeah, it's my main gig, so to speak. Yeah.
So 2008, what happened in 2008?
For me to leave?
Yes.
2008, the radio thing in me never died.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you became a pastor, you had
I left everything.
You left radio?
Yeah, I walked away from everything.
You left your wife with the cards, hopefully.
Yes, I walked away from everything.
Anyway, Pastor,
I just decided, you know what? Kama Mungu ameniita hapa, let me just put all my energies here. Yeah. So that's what I did.
For 8 years.
For 8 years. But the radio bug, as we call it, never died. And I'd even shared with my senior pastor, we'd have conversations on and off about radio. And so in 2008, I remember we started a conversation with the senior pastor, and he was asking, I know you still have a passion for radio, and can you find out what would it take for us to start our own radio station? Yeah, so okay, this conversation has been revived. Okay, let me see what I can do. Before then, there was a time a colleague of mine that we were with at Family had gotten a job at Kameme, and he was doing an afternoon show. And so he gave me a slot. I would go do devotions in the afternoon at Kameme. Near Wasapere, but they had an afternoon show in Swahili. Yeah, so he used to run the Swahili show. And so he had given me a segment. So I'd go in like once a week and record devotions for the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we had this conversation, something interesting happened. One time we were going for a funeral to Nyeri or somewhere. And I get a call. And the lady on the other side says, "Hi, my name is Monica Matiri." Yeah. And I knew Monica, being in the media circles at that time. Previously, I had known about her. So she says, I'm the station manager here at Hope. I want to have a conversation with you because you have been highly recommended by one of our pastors. And I ask, which pastor? He says, Pastor Kuchio has highly recommended you. Can we have a conversation? Are you able to come to see me today? I told her, not today. Today I'm en route to a funeral. Can I come next week? So next week I went. We sat down and had a conversation, and she told me, you know what, we have a slot for the morning show. The person who was doing the morning show has left, and there's a gap there, and Pastor Kuchio has said you are the person to fill it.
Who was the person doing the show at that time?
At that time, before I went in, I think Tina was the one doing it.
Yes.
Then Tina left, and then Andrew Alovi had taken it up. And so Andrew Alovi was kind of shikiliering before they find somebody else to do it. So I said, okay, let me talk to my pastor first to find out how this can work out. He says, fine, even as you do that, we are having interviews. So come for the interviews. So I went and sat down with my pastor and I explained to him. He said, fine, go for the interviews. Let's see how it goes. So I went for the interviews and I got the slot. And so the agreement was, because you guys know I'm a pastor somewhere else. Yeah. So I'm coming in, doing the show. The show ends at 10, I'm out. Yeah. I'm reporting on the other side. So that was the agreement. So they gave me a probation 3 months. Went in 3 months. The show that just skyrocketed. Because for me, it was like I never left. Nika kupeleka bike. Ujapeleka bike for years and then you sit on a bike, you fumble a bit, but once you get into rhythm, everything comes back.
In the spirit of being honest, since I've never, sijakuja kupeleka bike.
Oh,
lakini nishaanguka mara kadhaa. But I hear.
Yeah.
In the spirit of transparency.
I think I'll start a show for people like you, how to ride a bike.
I tell you, riding a bike 101. Yeah. And interestingly, when Tony would come and katia, he taught me how to ride a bike. The first time I actually did hapo kwa Karaunda hapo Buru phase 3. Nikaenda around, the only time in my life nimeride bike. Na nikaingia green na tukaanza story na tukasema.
Na mkasahau mambo ya bike.
Hata ikaibiwa.
Okay.
Moving on very swiftly.
Moving on swiftly.
But I hear the hope is
nitapanda
nitakumbuka.
Yes, utakumbuka. It just comes back. Inakuwa kwa storage mahali. Sijui kama ni hapa juu ya masikio ama ni wapi. But hiyo come to. So for me radio was like that. So went in, fumbled the first week, but then rhythm ikaingia and the show just took off. Yeah. So did my probation 3 months. After 3 months, we can give you a contract. So back to base. Okay, this is what they're saying. This is what they want to do. So what do I do? Okay, you contract is for how long? Tell them to give you another 3 months contract. So I go back, 3 months contract. Okay, fine. We do another 3 months. The show is just climbing. Yeah, it's just climbing. And then 3 months end. Okay, now we want to give you a proper contract. Yeah, we want you stationed here. We want you to do this thing for real. See mambo nusu nusu. So I go back on the other side. Now it became an issue. It became an issue. Now you have to choose.
Oui.
Yeah, you can't be in 2 ministries at the same time. Yeah. So I was in a place of conflict because I'm not doing this behind anybody's back. I presented this. I was just doing everything under guidance. So now it's at a place where, okay, you have to decide which is which. And so we sat down with my wife, prayed about it, and we felt it's time to go back to radio. Yeah. It's time. It's time. So we said, okay, fine, we'll go back to radio. So I remember having a very interesting conversation with HR at CITAM at that time. I think her name was Ruth. And she asked me for my pay slip. And I showed her, I brought my pay slip. She looked at it and she said, this is how much you earn. And you're a youth pastor. And you're not even the main youth pastor. Pastor, I won't lie to you. Don't leave your job.
Live.
we will mess up your life. Because what we are offering you is probably half of this. And I thought, what?
Yeah,
God, this part was not missing. This part was missing in the instructions you gave me. And so we went back to the drawing board with my wife. I told her, fine, just give me 3 months ikiisha, nitaachana na hiki tu. Do you think God would let us sleep? You know, where you feel like your heart is being tormented. You feel like, no, you're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
There's no peace, there's no sleep. And my wife told me, no, we just have to obey. If God is the one calling us, then he will provide for us. So went through a season of back and forth. But eventually I decided to, since this is what God is saying, I let go of pastoring and I went into radio at Hope as a radio presenter.
And you worked with Hope for like how long?
I worked with Hope for 4 years, from 2008 until 2012. Yeah.
And then?
So in between, in fact, that first year, after leaving Lighthouse and now going to Hope, my bishop had also left. We left almost the same time. So he had left and gone to...
Destiny Chapel.
Not Destiny, CMM. Yeah. So he was working with CMM. And CMM is Clarence Mathini Ministries.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a leadership training institute for pastors. Yeah. So it was actually set up by Pastor Don's parents. Yeah. So we are still in the same ministry, so to speak. So I remember at that point, we were trying to figure out which church do we go to. Yeah. So we joined one of the churches in the city that I will leave nameless for now. And we went there for several Sundays and it was odd for us.
Yeah, because here you're serving in the ministry where there's a church, but you also have loyalties with Lighthouse.
Yes.
And you cannot go because now you were a pastor. That's a very...
It's a strange place to be. And also because we are pastors.
You have to go to church.
Sitting in the pew. The best way I can explain it is this way. And I think the editor would understand. Yeah? When the editor looks at a show or a clip on YouTube, they see what we don't see. They're not looking necessarily at the content. Then they're looking at the camera angles. They're looking at the editing. And they can see, I wish they had done this the other way. So now for us as pastors in the pew, it was hard. Because we are thinking, I present worship, I'm going by your wimbo sai. Mbona watu wainui mikono wakiabudu. So we are seeing a lot of... Then one day we walk into church and it was the week Michael Jackson had died. Yeah. And I remember that weekend, that Saturday, I was at home with my kids, my 2 sons and my daughter, and I was just telling them the power of music because they were doing a memorial of Michael Jackson on TV.
So and you were attending the funeral?
I could sing the songs word for word. And I was telling them, I haven't sang this song in years, but it's still here. So I was trying to tell them the power of music. And so I remember that Sunday we were driving into church and they're singing a Michael Jackson song. Yeah. They were singing the song. The praise and worship team was singing.
On a Sunday service?
Yes. On a Sunday service.
Just for the sake of curiosity, which Michael Jackson song? I know this is so irrelevant to this story.
I can't remember. I think it was Billie Jean.
Heal the World.
I think it was Billie Jean, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember Carole driving into church, and my son asked me, Dad, why is it not okay for us to listen to secular music in the house and they're singing it in church? And I turned and I looked at my son and I said, this is the last time we are coming to this church. And I remember that Sunday after service, because we were several of us who had been at Lighthouse together. Then people had moved out for their own reasons, but somehow we found ourselves in this church. And we had reunited, and now kuna kaklish ketu. And I remember that Sunday after church, we met at the parking. And I told guys, hey, me, next Sunday I'm Taniona. Bishop Chola, same thing. Several people, hey, same thing. So it says, so what do? We said, si tunaweza meet kwa kale ka restaurant next Sunday. Tukae chini tuongee. We debrief, we detox.
Yeah, because also, and you know, I think someone watching us and not understanding, like how we grew up. As we grew up in a time where the world behind me, the cross before me. Kama kuhag ni makosa.
Yes.
Hey, my God.
Sembuse Billie
hata kukuwa na radio karibu kwa makosa. hope na family litusaidia
sana.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that is something.
Yeah. So the next Sunday we met at a restaurant in the morning. Saa 4. We drank tea. We talked about our experiences. Now we started sharing, why did I leave? Why did I end up here? Where am I at in my life? So now those deep connections. Yeah. So we had lunch. We continued talking. We had 4 o'clock tea. We were living there at 5, 6. So guys, next Sunday, let's just meet here. We met there, I think, for 4 or 5 Sundays. And one of those Sundays, one of the ladies looked at Pastor Chola and myself and said, Pastor Chola na Pastor Jemo, mnajua hii ni church? Wacha vile tunashinda tukisema tutaenda wapi? Mnajua hii ni church? We meet every Sunday. In fact, leo tunatoa offering. And then they said, Pastor Chola, next Sunday we are meeting at your house. And so next Sunday we met at Pastor Chola's house. And that's how Destiny Chapel was born. And I remember we prayed for the name. God gave us the name. And then we prayed and I said, God, we know right now getting a license for churches is hard. Some churches have been waiting for 3, 4, 5 years. If this is really you, we will get our license in record time. Mungu ni nani? We were called for our license. And the person who was giving us the papers was asking, who do you guys know? Who is this person? We just applied kawaida. They came and vetted. They did the things they do. And they called us to pick our certificate. And this lady was asking, who do you guys know? Because there are churches who've been waiting for 3 years, 5 years. You guys applied just the other day. Na yenyu imetoka. There must be somebody high in government that you know. He said, yeah, we know the boss. Yeah. So that's how Destiny Chapel was birthed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How do you stay centered to what the Lord has called you to do in the season He's called you to do it?
Wow. Let me tell you, it's not easy. I have seasons where, I've had seasons even where I've questioned my calling. I've had seasons where I almost quit. Yeah. There's one time I went to Bishop Chola and I told him I'm taking a sabbatical and I don't know for how long and I don't know if I'm coming back. And he said, by all means. That's one of the things I love about serving under him. I mean, he's a father, he's a brother, he's a comrade, he's all things in one. He feels you. He said, that's fine. I know exactly what you're going through. You take all the time we need. Any support you need from us, we'll give you. Yeah, if you take 6 months, I'm okay. If you take a year, I'm okay. Bora tu, you find where God wants you to be. Then once you're sure where God wants you to be, come, let's sit down and let's see how we can help you get there. So I've had those moments where I'm thinking like, no, God, this is not it. Because also sometimes the expectation is way up there, especially being in the media. I remember one time a lady called me during the morning show and she was crying on the phone. Her kids had been sent home from school. She had no school fees. And so I took time and encouraged her. I think I played 3 songs following each other, 3 long songs during the time ya kuongea naye kwa simu. It was not one of those situations you say, I'll call you back. She seemed like she was really in distress and she needed to offload and talk to somebody. So I talked to her, prayed over her, encouraged her, finished. And as we were finishing, I told her, by the way, you know, you're not alone. Mine were chased from school 3 days ago. Ajanda shule hata leo. She couldn't believe it. She said, what are you talking about? And she was asking, how do you find then the strength and the courage to come in every morning and to encourage us? The truth of the matter is, I don't know. There are days I wake up, Carole, and I'm asking myself, who is going to the studio? I have nothing to give today. Nothing. Lord, I've operated on fumes. At fumes.
Zimeisha.
Yeah, I have nothing. But I just show up. And God is my witness. The moment the lights and the cameras and the mics are on, something comes on me. I've never been able to explain it. I have the energy. I know what to ask. One of the things people keep asking me, the people who come on my show, because people come so tensed up. What questions are you going to ask me? And I tell them, relax. You see the way we are talking? This is how I do my show. Just relax. Yeah, we are talking about teenage pregnancy. Usijali. Si unajua tu vitu hapa na pale. People come with notes. I tell them, wachana na hizo notes. Let's just talk. And I find that somehow God gives me what to say. And then the moment I finish my show and I walk out of that studio, I'm thinking like I just want to go home. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I don't have anything to say anymore. But when I'm there where God wants me to be,
He gives you the grace.
He gives me the grace to be able to do it. And sometimes people wonder, you're so busy, you do a lot. If I was to tell you one of the struggles I've had for a long time, you will not believe it. One of the things I struggle with is I'm not doing enough. Because from my perspective, I have a lot of time and I'm not using it well. Somebody else looks at my life and they're thinking, Pasi, by 3 you're up, by 5 you're in the studio, you do a 3-hour show. After that, sometimes you have another show to record. In the afternoon, you're in the church office. Pasi, where do you get the energy? Where do you get the time? And me, I'm thinking you should know the struggles I have in my life. I'm not doing enough. I feel like, there are seasons in my life I feel like I'm struggling with laziness. I tell it to people and they can't understand. They say, Pasi, apana, not you.
Feel like you're
that's the reality sometimes that I live in, you know. And for me, the way I look at all these things, whether it is church and ministry in the media, I look at them as one thing. Because people ask me, how are you able to change from media into church? I don't have to change, it's the same thing. I meet people, I talk to them and they say, you sound exactly the way you sound on radio. And I'm thinking, yeah, it's the same
me,
voice.
it's the same me.
I don't have a radio voice and a voice for the other people in the world, no. The me on radio is the me at home, it's the me in church. That way then, I don't mix up my identities. Yeah, so that I give you the me at church on radio and I forget the me at radio. No, it's the same person. And because I look at all 3 areas of my life, as ministry at family, ministry within my family, and ministry at church, I look at them as one thing. That has helped me. And
maybe that is why for you, you feel like you are being lazy because you're just living your life.
Yeah, I'm just living my life.
Unaishi tu maisha yako, alafu unaona ni kama ufanyi kitu.
Yeah.
You do a lot. That voice, that is not the voice of God. Ako sauti kakuja kakuambia, ongeza. Ako si God. Kashindwe. Because sometimes we live in the quietness. Sometimes you can be so active, particularly if you're a person of high energy, very creative. You live in this bus of energy that you forget that where we get the strength is in the place of quietness. So you start thinking the reason why I'm feeling so low is because I'm not doing enough, I'm just being lazy. And maybe God is telling you, no, back off and do less and hear me. I struggle working. I hear you kabisa. I struggle with that place of sasa tumeitwa Saturday prayer. Okay, Lord, I've prayed for all my relatives, I've prayed for this, and I'm thinking, okay, amele show. I wonder kama kina Katsu wamefanya nini. Did Jennifer remember? I wonder what you're cooking. I'm like, okay, God, I'm sorry. I'm trying to focus. Then one day I just said, you know, God knows me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, nikakuja tu na notebook. Okay, God, these are the things I wanted us to talk about. Let's halfway start forgetting and meander. Please just understand this was my focus. Now you, what are you telling me? And I think sometimes in life we have to embrace the way we are. Yeah, we have to embrace the way we are.
Very true.
Though the world does not celebrate you when you're yourself. You're supposed to be clones.
Yeah, you're supposed to be a clone. Yeah.
So what has been your greatest, when you look back at the journey of your life, what's the thing that you're most proud of that God gave you the opportunity? Let me put this in a bit Christian way, because when you ask someone, I'm not proud, the Lord is the one who's done. It's true. But what are you happy that the Lord partnered with you to achieve?
I think one of the things I would say I'm most proud of is my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. This past Sunday, one of our friends died. People we grew up together. So she had relocated to UK. She passed on. And so we had met in Buru just to pray with the family and to let them know we are around. We can help where we can. I remember meeting some of my friends we grew up with. Some of them I haven't seen them in over 20 years. Yet we're in this same Nairobi. But life just happens. And I remember we started talking, and for some reason we started talking about our families. And one of them asked, by the way, Pasi, umekuwa married for how long? And I told them this year, 26 years. They could not believe, because all of them are older than me. They couldn't believe, 26? How old are your kids? I told them my firstborn finished college. He even worked for 8 months. Now he's trying to set up his own thing. They're thinking like, what?
You have 2 babies?
3.
3.
2 boys, 1 girl. Yeah. So for me, when I look back and I look at my children and my wife and how far the Lord has brought us and the character and the giftings that my children have, I thank God.
So what would be the thing you would want to tell a person, maybe it's a young parent or a young person coming up and, asking themselves about ministry, considering getting into full-time ministry? What would be some of the things that you'd want to share, looking at your back, at, where the Lord has brought you from?
Okay. I remember the first time I sat down with Pastor Don, my first day as a pastor in full-time ministry. He asked me, why are you here? What is that word that God has given you to confirm that you're supposed to be here? And I shared with him. And he looked at me, I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, never forget that word. That word is what will keep you. Because at one point I will disappoint you. The pastors you will work with here will disappoint you. The people you pastor will disappoint you. And when we all disappoint you, the only thing that will keep you moving is the word God has given you. So hold on to that. The second thing he told me is, when you come in here, don't try to be somebody else. The thing you have been doing is what has brought you here. Yeah. You're now not a pastor. No, you've actually been a pastor for some time. You've been doing pastoral work. So the thing is, we just want you now to focus on what you have been doing and we'll pay you to do it. So don't try to be anything else. Keep doing what you have been doing. That is what we call pastoral work. And so for any young person who wants to get into ministry, be sure that God has called you. Yeah. Be sure God has called you. If you're going into ministry to make money, fugua tu biashara. Yeah, ministry is not about money. I'm sure we can tell you stories and you would wonder why you're still in there. So ministry is not about making money. And then if you're entering ministry to make a name for yourself, you want to be the next big so-and-so, you will not go far. Just understand that ministry means you're giving your life for others. Yeah, you are there to guide others, to speak into other people's lives. God will take you through some stuff. Because sometimes God takes you through some stuff because of the people he's bringing along your way. Yeah. And if you haven't experienced it, you will not be able to minister to them. I tell people, I know how it feels not to have rent. I know how it feels to sleep hungry. I know how it feels to walk to church from Waithaka to City Stadium because I've been there. I know how it feels to be thrown out of a house. Yeah, because you can't afford rent. Nani hao ya mabati? So utaenda wapi?
Nakwambia God will provide.
Yeah.
Na kaini kama ana provide.
So because God took me through all those things, then I'm able to sympathize and to have compassion for the people who are in that space. So understand that if God is calling you into ministry, it's not about you, it's about people. Ministry is always about people. Ministering to people, caring for people, and people will hurt you, people will disappoint you, people will say all sorts of things about you, but you have to know why you're there and what God has called you to do.
Wow. What has been your greatest challenge?
Wow. My greatest challenge, I think my greatest challenge in ministry is not to give in to pressure. Because that is so real. Yeah, pressure to do what everybody else is doing. Pressure to seem like I'm with it. Yeah. One of the things I usually tell people is, I think it's easier to just be myself. What you see is what you get. If I'm struggling, I'm struggling. If I'm not okay, I'm not okay. If I have it, I have it. If I don't have it, I don't have it. And for me, I would say it's a pressure because of being in media. Yeah, the fact that I'm in media, there's a certain expectation that people have about me. And so some things they would not even think that I would be in that space. There are some things people would expect I would be doing by now. Pasi we ni jina kubwa. I'll never forget one time I met with a friend of mine in town and he said, Pasi maze, Pasi, Pastor Jemo. Pasi unajua wewe ni jina kubwa hii country maze. Pasi wewe lakini umelalia masikio. Pasi wewe ningekuwa na hiyo platform uko nayo. Sa ile machine ningekuwa nikidrive it au watu wangekubali. This is somebody who's born again. I'm thinking, okay, tell me more. Mapasi maze uko na platform. Pale maze tu ukiambia watu wafanye watafanya. Wewe umejifunga. And I'm thinking, okay, there's pressure because sometimes you leave the house and there's no sugar and no one will know. And people see you on TV and they're assuming you're okay.
Yeah. The way you move mountains. Yes. Back to the
uguze tu kamtu kamoja leo.
Ama tai mafuta tu hivi.
Isiishe.
Idifikisha tu home nisiaibike.
Yes. So, because of that outlook that people have, it's pressure.
Yeah.
I'll never forget one time I went to speak at JKUAT. It was an evening meeting. So we finished the meeting, and you know the way it is ministering to college people in high school. After the meeting, people have 100 things they want to talk to you about. So we finish all that, and then the officials are wananisindikiza. And then they ask me, Pasi umepaka wapi? Nikawaambia dinga yangu imekimbia hivi thika kuchukua watu inarudi. Ambia M3, yani ndile nimekam nayo. Imeendaga thika. Yes. And for me, the thing that surprised me is all of them were shocked that I take M3. Pasi wewe upanda M3. Nikauliza kwani mimi si mtu kanyinyi? Pasi mazewe uko kwa TV. Pasi unajua wewe mazewe ni jina kubwa. Jina kubwa ni ya Yesu. Mimi ni mkulima wa kawaida. My favorite phrase, every time somebody calls me a celeb, I tell them mimi ni mkulima wa kawaida. And I don't do that to downgrade
or to sound humble.
Or to sound humble. I do that for me because I know when it gets here, you will worship the ground I walk on. I don't want to get there. Yeah.
Afu unaenda kwa hiyo matruko sasa wewe God manzi ile ni bugani manzi.
And then you also become what's the word? Entitled.
Yeah.
Because I'm this person, when I walk in, people need to do this for me, people need to do this for me. Apana. So just maintaining that, being me, not being Pastor Jemo, or not being Pastor Jemo wa Destiny, senior pastor wa Destiny, or Pastor Jemo wa TV na radio. Everybody, we ni pastor wetu wa asubuhi. Ni sawa, but I always have to remind myself, who am I? I'm a child of God, and I'm just a simple guy from Buru.
And it's important to remember that your positions are very fleeting.
They are.
You know, nakumbukanga election hapo hivyo, I vote in Jericho. Yes. I used to, I changed now. And I'll never forget this particular politician, one account, hizo mapolls, amebeba hivi juu, mtu wetu, alafu the results came out, and it wasn't him. That guy, you know how you can have a hot potato?
Yes.
Even though alimutupa, aliwekelewa down mara that.
Yeah.
And the next person became mtu wetu, and I could, where I could just see the look on his face. And I was like, God help me never to do that.
Yeah.
Because these people, I mean, that's what they did to Jesus, you know, the triumphal entry, and everybody's like,
Hosanna, Hosanna.
Hosanna in the highest. And like a month or so later, crucify him. Yeah.
Let his blood be on our heads and our children's heads. Me, when I lost my job at Hope,
Ulijojui?
Hey, my friend. 1.5 years. I was nowhere. I thought, people know me.
Watakuinvitingi angalau speak.
Truth wataniita. Kama hupo wajisikii na mimi, truth wataniita. Family wataniita.
Fish.
Truth nilienda mpaka interview. Kaisha tu hapo. 1.5 years I was out in the cold. The people who used to call me did not call me anymore. Yeah. You're in that place where ulikuwa church, umepreach, lakini unangojea kila mtu aende home. Ndio upande ma3. Jutaki watu wakuone umepanda ma3. Zile magari zinapakigi kwa hiyo kanisa. You are their pastor, but no one has any idea what you're going through.
Manzi wale watuguzu wapatie pastor gari ni kina nani?
Ni kina nani? Mimi usikia tu testimony za watu wengine. Hizi testimonies zitawainifikia. I was sinking into a depression.
Yeah.
But no one knew. No one knew at all. And then the day I got the job at Family, my phone came alive. Pasi tunaweza chapa show siku gani? Pasi congrats maze. Sasa tunaweza chapa show siku gani? Said my friend. Hey.
And you almost feel bitter.
Yes. So that's what I have to guard against. Not to elevate myself to a place that is not mine. No. Yeah. Otherwise then it ceases to become ministry and it starts to become about me. And I've seen that happen to some of our gospel artists where si kwa ubaya, people love you, people appreciate you, so people are wanakuinua, but then you allow it to get to your head and you think it's about you and not about God. And so now you begin to take advantage of people, you begin to gravitate into areas that are ungodly. And I'm not beyond that. I'm human just like they are. And so I have to keep reminding myself, it's about the people. It's not about you. It's about the people. It's about the people. Don't compare yourself to other people. Because sometimes you go through the motions. You have those moments where you're thinking, lakini kusema tu kweli Mungu, hii job nimekuchapia miaka ngapi? Every day I have pastors here. We are building people's lives. You know, we are discipling people. We are giving them content that is of eternal value. Na uko na kina Maina uko na stories zao mingi. And then they are being paid more than I am. God, really, is that fair? Ama ni flip tu niende hiyo side. Jipia hiyo side naweza thrive. To story niko natuo. Naweza thrive, but then you remember, why are you here? Yeah, why are you here? Are you here for the money or are you here for the ministry? And besides, do you think God will not repay everything you have done for him? It may not come in the way you would expect it to come, but do you think God is such an unfair and unjust God that he would not repay you for everything, even far above everything you have done for him in his name with a pure heart? Yeah. So that keeps me.
Wow. I think the most important thing is serve God. I'm learning that when I serve people, I lose it. But when I serve God, I remember that when I'm standing there, when we're doing this show, it's not about people, it's about God and what he has done for me.
Yes.
And when your focus is stayed on Jehovah, some of this, of course, kuna saa tumacho uenda kwa maji hivi unaanza kuzimia zamia wacha niangalie Yesu.
Yes.
But when your eyes are stayed on Jehovah, you get the grace.
Yes.
And you remember it's about eternity. It's about eternity. What's your guiding verse?
My guiding verse, I have several, but one of the verses I always fall back to is Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good to them that love him and are called according to his purposes. His purpose. Because we live in a space where everybody's chasing my purpose, my truth, my what. So me, it reminds me that no matter what I'm going through, I know I am called by him, not by the people I'm serving. It is him who called me. And he called me not according to what I want, but according to his purpose. And so as long as I know I'm aligned to his purpose, then even this that seems disastrous, I know it will work out for my good. If I just stay put, and if I just hold it and depend on him, I know things will come together. And besides, he is not an unjust God. He knows the desires I have about this and about that and about that. And he said, if you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, akiuliza samaki utampatia. kistone ama sijui nini. Hapana.
Makinyoka.
So, yeah, I know that for him, even when things from my perspective seem not to be working, I know he has me covered. I may whine and complain sometimes and throw tantrums, but I always fall back to, you know what, even this. Because when I look at my life, the things I thought was disastrous, he used them to take me to the next level and to take me to the next level. Yeah, so that's for me, that is one of the scriptures I stand on.
Amen.
Yeah.
And what's your resounding song in this season?
My resounding song, do I have a song in this season? You know me, I listen to music the whole day because of the work that I do. I think the song I've been playing, and I play it every Friday, is a song by Chevelle Franklin and Israel Houghton, Good Shepherd, taken from Psalms 23. Yeah, that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He is the good shepherd. Yeah, it's a Karege song. Every Friday I have to play it. It's a reminder that, you know what, siko peke yangu. I'm not a son somewhere there trying to find a father, trying to provide for myself, trying to figure out life. God is my shepherd. And He is a good shepherd.
I think we're coming to an end, and so I want you to talk to somebody, straight at them, and talk about your legacy.
Okay.
What you want to be remembered for, and you can tie that in with your parting shot.
Okay. Legacy. My legacy, by the way, is not blue. It's not a blue one. But I think when I think about my life, and in fact, it's interesting you ask that, because being in my 50s now, I know I don't look 50, but I'm in my 50s, early 50s. Sijafikia wahenga ule wale tulikuwa tunaambiwa. Yeah. But I think when I look back, what I want to leave is I want to leave an army of disciples. One of the things that God has been speaking to me about lately is, who are you raising up? Are you raising up disciples, or are you just concerned about having numbers in church? And that has been a word that has been resounding over and over again. And so for me, one of the things that I want to leave behind is a group of men and women who are taking over for Christ because they were well discipled. That I can look back and say, I left men and women who are full of the Word of God, full of the Spirit of God, men who have purpose, men who know who they are and they know where they are headed to. Just like we spoke earlier on when we began this show, talking about how Pastor Don raised us. You know, that's a legacy that he has left. So many of us are still standing because of what he taught us. And for me, that is what I want. To leave people who love God, because in this generation we need men and women who will stand, men and women, you know, who will take over, men and women who will not compromise, because there's a lot that's going on in the world today. And even in the church, there are a lot of doctrines that are coming up that are very enticing, very seductive. And we need men and women who know the truth, who are grounded in the truth, and who are raising up other men and women who will do likewise. Just like the baton was handed over to us, that we will hand it over to a group of men who will not drop it, a group of women who will not drop it. And I pray that you will be one of those, you know, who will remain focused, standing on the truth, not being distracted by what other people are doing out there, but focusing on that which God has called you to do. I think my parting shot would be to the young ministers, to the young pastors who are coming up. Don't be in a hurry. I see a lot of young people today. You've started a ministry, 2 months later you are an apostle.
A Reverend Doctor.
Sawa, but it's not in the titles. It's not in the titles. Nowadays everybody wants to be an apostle or a prophet. It's like evangelists and pastors and teachers. Hizo ni za watu wako chini. I would encourage you, don't branch out on your own. Be patient. Sometimes the men and the women who are raising you may seem like they are holding the handbrake, but they know some things you don't know. And you should have somebody who walks with you. And don't be in a hurry. Allow God to take you one step at a time, one step at a time. And remember, ministry is not about making a name for yourself. Social media has given us so much pressure. You know, you want to start this and you want it to grow and to go viral. You know, you want to start a church and, you know, 3 months down the line, you have 300 people. Hey, we started Destiny 16 years ago. Yeah, 16 years ago. From 2009 until now is how many? About 15 years? Yeah. Yeah. And We have not hit 300 people 16 years later.
And in the media, and you're known.
And I'm in the media every
big
day.
churches.
I'm in the media every day. You would have expected my church would now be having 3,000, but we haven't even hit 300. We are dancing between 240 and 280. But I'm not in a hurry. It's not in the crowd. It's in the disciples that you raise. So even for you as a young minister, have somebody who will walk with you. Stay grounded in the word. Don't get into gymnastics to attract people. Be true to what God has called you to be, and be patient, because God is the one. Jesus said, and I will build my church. We are not the ones to build it. He is the one to build it. All we are to do is to proclaim him and to proclaim the gospel, which is the good news of the kingdom, and leave the rest to him. Mentor people, walk with them, grow them, and release them to do the work of ministry. There ends the second reading.
Amen. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that is so beautifully put, such a wonderful story. And you're watching us, and there's something that Pastor James has said that I can't reiterate enough. God is the platform giver. The race is not to the swift. God has not called us to serve where he has not called us to serve. So you be faithful.
Yeah.
You be faithful to where he has called you to be, and you do it with excellence. The rest is really not up to you. The rest is up to God. So God bless you, and see you next week as we talk to another Mhenga Mteule. God bless you.